You know, when something bad happens in your life, when there's a tragedy, when you lose a loved one, at some point you gotta get over it and move on with your life. You know what I mean? Well, in Fargo right now, they've got these petitions going around to demolish the apartment where Savanna Greywind lived. Can you believe this? Don't you think maybe some people are going a little too far with this? Well, what are they saying? Oh, the family drives by the apartment. Well, yeah, I'm sure they will. But, you know, the family, like everybody else, eventually they express their grief, they get over it, and they move on with their lives. We all do. Don't you think this is going a little bit over the top? As a society, a number here is 663-1270, 663-1270. As a society, we seem to have become overly sensitive to all this. The idea that when some tragedy happens, we have to go into mourning forever. You see it with the 9/11 thing every year. Okay, it's been 16 years. It was a pretty horrible thing when it happened, but you know, you try to learn from it, and then you move on. Now, I would contend, if the actions of our government are any indication, we probably haven't learned much of anything from it. But still, the point is, even if you lost somebody you know, even if somebody you know died under horrible circumstances, at some point you have to move on. People don't seem to understand that. It's like the people who put up the little roadside memorials. You see them on the interstate. There's one on the interstate between Bismarck and Fargo, on the side where you come over the bridge off the expressway, and you make that kind of right bank turn as you're on your way to Mandan. Right there at the turn, there's a memorial. And it's been there for like 3 or 4 years. Apparently, somebody is going to a lot of work to keep this thing updated. And I say, why? Don't you think we're going overboard with this? 663-1270, 663-1270. Jim Walsh, that would be me, on Super Talk 1270 and supertalk1270.com. People in the Fargo community are taking action in attempt to destroy the apartment building where Savanna Greywind once lived. They want to bring in the old wrecking ball and just knock it right down. It is the last spot where she was seen before police recovered her body in the river. It's also where they found the baby that we now know was hers. They did the DNA test. It is her baby. They found the baby in an upstairs apartment with the 2 suspects in the case. Well, there's this petition website called change.org. Every once in a while, they have a good petition on there. You see a lot of the usual rigmarole things, one way or another, on gun control and abortion and impeaching Trump and this, that, and the other and all that business. But somebody put a petition on there and is gathering signatures. The goal is to demolish the building that Ms. Greywind once called home. Now, to all the people who are signing this petition and circulating petitions like this one, let me just put this as simply as possible. Get the hell over it! Yeah, it's a tragedy. It was a damn shame it happened. It was too bad it had to happen. It shouldn't have had to happen. It shouldn't have happened. And I'm sure the family feels terrible. The extended family of this girl and the boyfriend who's the father of the baby, who still, by the way, does not officially have custody of the baby. I don't know what that's all about. That was weird. But aside from that, you know, the family, they'll deal with this in their own way. Really, the worst thing you can do in a situation like this is to make a big deal out of it. Basically, my rule of thumb is you express your condolences one time. And then you say, look, I'm here for you if you want to talk. And then if they want to make the move, then it's up to them. But after you make your condolences one time, I think you've done what all you can realistically can do. And you have to let them deal with it and get on with their lives. The worst thing, the absolute most inappropriate thing you can do is exactly what these people are doing by circulating a petition and making a big deal out of this. People saying stupid things like, well, the family has to drive by that apartment. Well, yeah, you know. My wife and I also, on one of our honeymoon trips to my hometown, we slept in the bedroom where my mother died years before. And she was not murdered. No, my mother. She died of cancer. But still, the point is, things happen in your life. Some are tragic. You get over them and you move on. We've kind of gotten away from that. We need to get back to it. All right? Number here, your comments welcome, 663-1270. 663-1270. Jim Walsh on Supertalk 1270. Online at supertalk1270.com. On your iPhone, your smartphone, and your ever-loving droid, it's the free app called Radio Pub. Check it out. Be right back.
On Twitter, Facebook, online, and YouTube. Supertalk1270.com.
Oh, we're talking about this petition going around North Dakota to demolish the apartment where Savanna Greywind lived, the young lady who was murdered, apparently. And she had her baby, and they found the baby in the apartment with the two people they suspected. You know the story by now. And somebody's actually got a petition going around. It's gathering signatures. They want to demolish the apartment. That's kind of ridiculous when you think about it. You know, we all have tragedies in our life, but, you know, I don't wig out every time I drive by a hospital where a loved one happened to pass away many years ago. People get over these things. They move on. You have to let them. You're not doing them any favor by, beating the, you should pardon the, well, this is going to sound horrible, but you know what I'm trying to say. I was going to say beating a dead horse. That's probably not the best way to put it. But you're not doing these people any favors. Number here is 663-1270. 663-1270. As a side note, this came in via my Facebook account. It looks like the credit card skimmer scam has hit Bismarck. I used my card at a gas station in Bismarck on Friday and had a fraudulent charge at another gas station in Bismarck a few hours later. Only place I used the card was at a gas station here in town. The police officer does have video of the thief using a card with my number at that station, even though I still have physical possession of my card. So, when you fill at the pump, look for any signs of tampering. Well, that's good advice in general. Yeah, try to fill your pump at the places where you know the people, if you can. I've got a little loaf and jug right up the street from my house, and I know the guy who runs it. I've seen him in there for years. And I know we're on a first-name basis. You go in there. You go places like that if you can. And, yeah, you keep your eyes open. This is something that's come out in the last few years. Marlo Anderson has talked about it on his show on Monday, the Tech Ranch, where they somehow they jury-rig some kind of fake credit card skimmer thing, and they actually attach it to the gas pump. Now, how they can actually get away with that without having somebody, without it being an inside job, in other words, without somebody in the store actually being in on it, I don't know. I'll leave you to draw your own conclusions on that, but do what I do. Find a good store where you get to know the people a little bit and you think you can trust them, and do your business there. And you should be okay. All right. Back to the subject at hand, and this is something that also comes up every year for 9/11. Yesterday, actually, 9/11, 16th anniversary of 9/11. And once again, we had some genuine emotion, some genuine pathos. We also had a lot of demonstrative hand-wringing and drawing of long faces and pointless patriotic references as a result of it. And it's really not necessary. Something happens in your life, and it happens to all of us. We lose somebody we love under circumstances that are tragic. Everybody has to deal with this once or twice in their life. And you may be a mess for a while, but you know what? You move on. You get over it. Life goes on. Eventually, you will. I mean, Jackie Kennedy, the ultimate example, right? There were actually people, when Kennedy died, people said, oh, is Jackie going to do? Well, Jackie, she'll go into mourning. She'll mourn her husband, and then she will get on with the business of life, raising her children and career and all that. And as if you know the story, and you should, Jackie went on to have a pretty good life for herself. She remarried. She raised a couple of children to adulthood, and she even had a career working with a book publisher. And it went pretty well for her. But at some point, she was in grief and she had to move on. Well, do you really think you're doing somebody like that, or just a regular person who goes through something like that? Do you really think you're doing them a favor by just hammering away at the thing every time you see them? No, at some point, it's no longer necessary to draw a long face and be so somber about everything. Kennedy, whatever. Well, it's happening here, and it's ridiculous, really. What's gotten into people? This excessive need to go over the top with the mourning and the condolences, and it's inappropriate. It's worse than useless. It's harmful. It's going to accomplish the exact opposite. No, don't tear down the apartment. Well, for one thing, people live there. You want to screw up their lives. You don't have to tear down the apartment building. Now, if you want to have a little memorial on your own property, that's one thing, I suppose. That might be a bit much psychologically, but on your own property, I guess it's okay. Although I do draw the line on things like roadside memorials. Totally inappropriate. I mean, you should not be unnecessarily distracting people while they're driving. We're making this whole big thing now about distracted driving, about people driving while they're texting and how that's wrong. And it's true. You shouldn't do that. You should not also be putting little signs and little memorials on the side of the road that will unnecessarily distract from the attention of the people who are driving. That is worse than useless. It actually adds to the problem. Number here is 663-1270, 663-1270. Don't you think people are going overboard with this? That's all I'm saying. By the way, got a great story here. Simon and Garfunkel, remember that song, Something Tells Me It's All Happening at the Zoo? Well, this just came over this morning. The Dakota Zoo. People call it the Bismarck Zoo. It's the Dakota Zoo, okay? Somebody needs to talk to whoever's writing these stories for the local newspaper. It's called the Dakota Zoo, all right? Not the Bismarck Zoo. But anyway, police are investigating something that happened at the zoo earlier this month. They've turned over some Snapchats to the Bismarck Police Department. Get this, showing two adults and a child going beyond the barriers and interacting with the animals. Now think about this. Occasionally you hear a story about a child who goes over the railing and gets in with the animals, and people freak out a little bit, but then they go in and usually they get the child out, the child's okay. Especially concerned if the animals are potentially dangerous. But here we have a case of two adults with a child going over the barriers. And the video showed the people petting the camels and interacting with the monkeys. Listen, seriously, leave the monkeys alone. The camels, too. I mean, these are not domesticated animals. They're not pets, okay? They're wild animals. They're not animals like dogs or cats that have been bred to be domesticated companion creatures for several thousand years. Your doggy or your kitty at home is a result of centuries, literally, of breeding to make that animal safe and make it the kind of animal that you can keep as a companion in your home. The camels and the monkeys, not so much. Especially the monkeys. Come on, monkeys are nasty, all right? You ever been around a monkey? Remember on Friends, the first couple of seasons where the one guy had the monkey as a pet? Marcel. And it was funny, after they got rid of the monkey, everybody who worked on the show, all the actors, they all said they were so happy that they got rid of that damn monkey. Because monkeys are nasty. They throw their poop at you. I mean, literally. That's not a figure of speech. It's not like saying, well, Donald Trump, somebody threw their poop at... No, I mean literally. Monkeys throw their poo at you. That shows you how domesticated they are. So please, don't go in the cage. Well, if you're going to, let me give you a little advice. If you're going to go in, go in with the bears. That would impress me. Go and, they got the big grizzly bears over at the Dakota Zoo. Yeah, do that. You want to impress me? Go over the fence and go tickle the bears. The bears love it when you tickle them. The bears are very ticklish, and they get a big kick out of it when you kind of tickle them in the ribs like that and under the chin. And pretty soon they'll be giving you a new nickname, Stumpy, right? But seriously, don't mess with the monkeys or the camels or the bears or even the big old buffalo. It's not a petting zoo, okay? These are wild animals. Now, they have the little area with the chickens, right? I think you can kind of, they let you feed the chickens, right? They have the little thing where you can put a quarter in and get a little corn to give to the chickens and the goats or whatever. Well, that's kind of different. Again, different type of animal. They may have been bred and domesticated. Goats, I believe, have been bred over the years to be primarily to be farm animals. But, when you go to the zoo, you can look, but you cannot touch, all right? The big lobo, the big Mexican wolf, he's a beautiful animal, but he's not a big friendly dog, okay? He's a wolf. Given the opportunity, if he was a little peckish, he would tear your arm off and eat it for breakfast. All right? Monkeys are small, but they're not cute. If you actually see them, they're pretty nasty. Leave the damn monkeys alone, please. I love this. You got to love these stories. Well, why do I get the distinct feeling that in the police report, the word alcohol will show up at least once on this? I'm sure. Anyway, enough of my proselytizing about the monkeys at the zoo. Go look at them. Don't play with them. That's drawing the line. 663-1270. Jim Walsh on Super Talk 1270. SuperTalk1270.com. More conversation. Your calls coming up. Yeah, seriously, don't play with the monkeys. You go to the zoo, just sit there and look at them. And there's a reason they put a fence between the monkeys and you, okay? It's to protect them, yes. It's also to protect you. The monkeys are nasty, all right? They have some evolving to do. Let's put it that way. Now, Bismarck police say there was an incident, 1st of September, where, get this, 2 adults and a child. If it's a couple of kids, that's one thing. But when 2 adults lead a child over the barriers and start interacting with the animals, petting the camels and interacting with the monkeys. Hey, they're the monkeys. These individuals may have trespassed by disobeying clear signage informing zoo visitors to not pass. Duh! Leave the monkeys alone. The monkeys don't like you, okay? You may like the monkeys, but the monkeys don't like you. They will tear your face off given half the opportunity. All right. Jim Walsh on Super Talk 1270, supertalk1270.com. Yeah, you think we're overdoing it with the reaction to things like the Savanna Greywind incident. Now, nobody's denying it was tragic what happened to that young lady. But when you've got people doing things like passing around a petition to to get a wrecking ball and knock down the apartment where they found the baby, where where she lived. Come on. People are going to get over it. They're going to get on with their lives. We mentioned the Jackie Kennedy story. Jackie got over it. She moved on with her life. It was a tragedy, but she did it. Yoko Ono, when John Lennon was killed, she got on with her life. And yeah, it may never be the same. And yeah, you'll always be a little sad about it. But that's life. Life moves on. You're not really doing anybody any favors by dwelling on something like this. After a point when you have a tragedy, you obsess on it for a while. That's part of the grieving process for a lot of people. But then there comes a time when, okay, I got to get on with my life. I got to get back to work and get back to my regular routine. And that, of course, is always the very best thing you can possibly do. Getting back to your regular workday routine is the best remedy for any kind of shock in the long run. So the worst thing you can do is have somebody saying, no, you're not finished with the mourning process. What's going to happen when you drive by the place where they die? Well, we all do that all the time. If you've lived here for any length of time, you drive by the hospital, you go, yeah, that's where Grandma died, and you move on. And you're done with it. What's the matter with you people? 663-1270, 663-1270. I would even go as far to mention some of the memorial services you see for things like the police department. Remember that policeman in Fargo who was killed about a year and a half ago, and they had that big gaudy ceremony for him in the city. And there were people, I was among them, who said, this is a bit much. Yeah, you can honor the man, but this is just grandstanding. This is politicians getting together and saying, let's make some hay out of this. This is exploitation, pure and simple. And there were a lot of people, I know for a fact, there are a lot of people who felt that way and didn't want to say it. But I'm saying it now. When you go overboard on stuff like that, you're really not. You have to question the motives of the people who are doing it. You see some big, gaudy, tacky display for a cop who was shot and killed in the line of duty. You're not, don't kid me. You're not doing it for the guy's family. You're not doing it to honor the police force. You're doing it because you're a politician and you want to get your piece of the action out of it. Let's be honest about it. That's what it's all about. So don't insult my intelligence, Mr. Politician, and tell me that you're doing all this simply to honor the police force and the public service. That's a lot of malarkey. You're doing it for you, pal. This is all about number one. I've already told my wife I don't want a big, gaudy funeral. That's the last thing in the world I want was a big ceremony. A nice little get-together. Maybe I'm not at a church because I'm not religious. But maybe at a little social hall somewhere, just get a few of my friends together, the people I cared about in life. And obviously, I'm not a big celebrity. I'm not going to get a big turnout at my funeral or my ceremony, and that's fine. I'm fine with that. If it were up to me, there would be no ceremony at all. Just, cremate, throw the ashes in the wind over the river and then be done with it. And everybody get on with your damn life. That's really how I feel about it. But if they want to have a little ceremony, that's fine. But I'm really not big on this whole. I'm certainly not big on the idea of drawing it out. Oh, Jim, and by the way, whoever writes my obituary, oh, boy, I'm walking on somebody's grave here today, knock wood. But whoever writes my obituary, please don't get flowery with it. Jimmy died this week. Jimmy Walsh died this weekend, and he's with Jesus now. Don't do that. Just give the basic information, and everybody just get on with it. Okay? I obviously am not going to care one way or the other. I don't care now one way or the other. My point is, when you go overboard in memorializing, honoring the dead, you got to question the motives of these people who are doing it. And some people, it's they see opportunity for exploitation. Other people see they have some kind of guilt about a situation in their own lives, and they're overcompensating for that. Some people just can't handle the idea that people, it's like when a celebrity dies, somebody you haven't thought about in years. And all of a sudden, certain people go nuts. They haven't thought about, when Elvis died, there were people who hadn't thought about Elvis in years. In a sense, his career died long before he did. I mean, Elvis was great. I loved Elvis. But, I didn't give Elvis much thought in the 70s. He just wasn't part of the zeitgeist of the time. And then he died, and all of a sudden, everybody's thinking about Elvis again. Well, part of that is natural. Part of it is just kind of ghoulish. You didn't give the guy that much attention when he was alive. Not just a celebrity, but anybody you know or know of. I mean, how many of us really, you take for granted who the President of the United States happens to be? I was 7 years old, but when Kennedy died, so it is within my memory. I remember it happening. And a lot of people had trouble with the idea that, well, you don't think about who the president is, and all of a sudden he's not there anymore. It's a different guy, and you go, my God, what's going on with the world? All of that is very natural. All of that is very human. What is not natural or human is to take it to the next step and start artificially extending the grief process, exploiting it. That's when things get very distasteful. Whether you're talking about a big gaudy ceremony for a fallen police officer, or a woman who's a murder victim, or a politician or a celebrity or anybody else. We really need to learn to get a grip on the grief thing in this society. And the first thing you have to understand is that life goes on. You don't have to draw. 9/11, same deal. Same deal. We just passed the 16th anniversary for 9/11. What's the significance of 16th anniversary? Well, there is none, really, except for the fact that it was the anniversary of this thing happening. I can imagine some family members of the victims gathering at the site in Lower Manhattan, or some people who were affected by it personally at the time. They may listen to an appropriate song or two, the Paul Simon thing, or they may look at a couple of videos and just reminisce about it and how people reacted and so on. But having done that, you then move on. You then get on with your life. What really gets to me is the exploitation behind this stuff. It's very inappropriate. And a lot of people are afraid to say so, but I'll say it right here and now. People go way too far overboard with this stuff. And you need to learn to move on. And don't fall for the people who are trying to exploit you for your grief, for whoever it is. Because these people do not have your... They are not grieving with you. They are frauds. They're hustlers. They're exploiting you. They are not joining you in your grief. They are not there because they want to comfort you and help you. You should always question the motives, especially these people who go way overboard on this stuff. All right. Having said that, I want to move on to some more upbeat material, if that's the appropriate word. An acquaintance of mine who's in the broadcasting business, he covers major news stories and he talks about them. He posted this. After Harvey and Irma, question resurfaces. Should reporters put themselves in harm's way when reporting on storms and floods? How many times do you really need to see some schlemiel reporter nearly blown into the ocean? Or is that the only way to get the story and illustrate nature's wrath? No, it's not, really. And I'll tell you why. I'm not old enough. I'm an old guy, but I'm not that old. I never lived in a world without television, but my daddy did. My mom and dad did. My dad, when I was a little kid, he was always telling me the stories about growing up and listening to, there was a thing called the radio. Because at the time, the radio was not only dominant, it was really the only real mass media we had, other than newspapers, if you can call that mass media. There were no national newspapers at the time, except for a few political things. Your Communist Party, they had news, in some right-wing groups, they had newspapers. But mostly, if you wanted to follow the culture of the time, you followed radio. Now, think about this. How would you handle a story like this if you couldn't show somebody being blown across the boardwalk? The point being is that there is more than one way to skin a cat. There is more than one way to illustrate the power of a storm like this. And people have got to stop falling back on this crutch of, showing the guy with his hat blowing off and he gets nearly blown into the ocean and all that. How many hundreds of times have we seen that now? Every hurricane that comes along, well, we see another version of it again. Can't these guys come up with something a little bit different, kind of a fresh take on the whole thing? Just asking. Just wondering. I don't know. Maybe actually show him getting blown into the ocean and drowning. And then his body washes up and nah. Although we're probably coming to that. That's probably the next step here, 663-1270. 663-1270. Jim Walsh, Super Talk 1270, supertalk1270.com. Be right back. Andromeda. Like something by a big spider back there. Previous message brought to you by the AARP. Remember our motto, we're old and the world owes us a living. They really do. Get off my lawn.
Ain't I a stinker?
Jim Walsh on Super Talk 1270, supertalk1270.com. Some miscellaneous stuff here for you. Remember Laetrile? Remember a few years ago, about 20 years ago, there was this big to-do about this drug. You couldn't buy it here. It was never approved. It was illegal to buy it in the States. But in Mexico, people were going down there and buying it because it was available there. It was called Laetrile. It was a drug. They supposedly made it from apricot pits. I'm not kidding. And it was supposed to be a cure for cancer. And the thing is, it didn't work. And it had horrible side effects because one of the ingredients of an apricot, there's a reason you don't eat apricot pits. They have cyanide in them, and people were taking Laetrile, and one of the side effects was, believe it or not, cyanide poisoning. Well, flash forward to 2017, to the modern day. Apparently there are people out there who are still taking this stuff. A story about a man, 67 years old. He was diagnosed with cyanide poisoning from taking Laetrile. He was showing symptoms of being poisoned. Sounds like an Alfred Hitchcock drama. And they did a test and they found cyanide in his system, and it was from the land. And he's continuing to take it anyway. Hey, it's because I don't want to get cancer. That's insane. That's nuts. Alternative medicine. Don't get me started on that subject. Laetrile, alternative medicine, like alternative news, and about as useful. No, I'm not a fan of homeopathic remedies. And I pretty much stand with the amazing Randy on and Bill Nye, the science guy, on that subject. Don't get me started. Or maybe you do want to get me started. I don't know. Let's see, 663-1270. Now, tomorrow in Bismarck, definitely got to talk about this because, as much as we talk about this, there's always going to be a handful of people who don't get the message. There's going to be somebody, I guarantee, I'll bet you $10 to a donut, that sometime tomorrow during the day, there's going to be at least one person in downtown Bismarck who is going to be walking down the street in the vicinity of the 300 block of West Burley, and they're going to see all these cops running around with paramilitary gear and assault rifles, even shooting the rifles, and they're going to wig out and they're going to panic, and it's going to be a real mess. Well, I'm telling you right now, right up front, if you see something like that tomorrow, don't worry. It's an exercise. And the Bismarck police put out a press release on this, and it's on the news. Super Talk 1270 obviously carried it as the lead news story this morning. That news guy, the guy who does the newscast in the morning, he's pretty good. Yeah, he's handsome too. But anyway, Bismarck Police and the West Dakota SWAT team are holding this joint training exercise in Bismarck tomorrow around the 300 block of West Burley. You'll see the cops running around in their SWAT gear. You'll see armored vehicles. You may see them even firing their weapons. It's blanks, okay? I'll tell you right now, it's all just an exercise. You know when they say in Dr. Strangelove, Colonel, this is not an exercise. Well, actually, in this case, Colonel, it is an exercise. So if you see this kind of rigmarole going on downtown tomorrow, don't worry. They're just practicing for the real thing, which we hope and pray will never come. Just saying. Because you know somebody is not going to hear this, or they're going to hear it, they're going to completely misinterpret it, or they're going to get down there and they're going to see this going on, and they'll start second guessing. Oh, maybe what if it's real? What if the terrorists actually they heard we were having an exercise and they decided that they would attack? Because we wouldn't know. We just think, it's like, what if the Russians bombed during a siren test? Every day at noon you blow the siren for the Russian air attack, and the Russians go, if it bomb at 12 o'clock in North Dakota, they'll think it's a lunchtime break. Yay Mao or whatever. Don't start second guessing. Don't start getting panicky. You see these guys downtown tomorrow in their paramilitary, their SWAT gear. We got to get that theme from SWAT. We're going to have to play that tomorrow, I guess. If you see them there and you even see them shooting guns, it's all play acting. It's all practice. It's all a rehearsal. It's a military, what they call an exercise. And they're just doing it. It's part of the training thing. Okay, just everybody be cool, all right? Everybody be frosty. There you go. What else do we have to talk about? The group, yes, they were supposed to play in Moorhead last night. They had to cancel the tour. Unfortunately, the son of Steve Howe, the lead guitar player, and he was the original guitarist. Actually, he wasn't, but he was the guitarist on all their big hits. His son passed away. Steve Howe's son died, so they had to cancel the tour, including last night's gig in Moorhead. So they got Todd Rundgren was supposed to be the opening act, but of course Todd Rundgren is a pretty heavy performer in his own right. So as I understand what they did, basically they just had Rundgren do the whole set, which is, Todd Rundgren was a major artist back in the 70s, and, he could play a 6-hour gig and, he'd still not get all of his hits in. So that kind of worked out, but our condolences, I suppose, to the friends and family of Yes and to Steve Howe for his loss. New Miss America, of course, we've talked that to death. I will mention, if you're a fan of The Onion, what do they call it? America's finest news source. You definitely got to check the latest edition of The Onion. They have some very amusing, funny things to say about the selection of the new Miss America. Check it out for yourself. All right, your comments welcome. Supertalk 1270, supertalk1270.com. Till next time, Jim Walsh saying until next time, so long. Until next time, I'm out of here.